Hi everybody and welcome to my studio. My name is Lonna and I am an acrylic artist, and if you've stopped by my studio today, you've stopped by to paint. So what are we doing today? We're doing this beautiful pillow cover, but you can paint this pattern on anything that you want. This is one of my white canvas pillow covers from my website at lonnalamb.com. This is my Cone Daisy pillow cover, and I have the line drawing on my website. It's a 3-page line drawing, and I have included the list of paints that I use and a color reference photo for you, so you can head over there and purchase that. But again, you can paint this on anything that you want. On a canvas would be beautiful. So if you're ready to paint on fabric or whatever you choose to paint on, let's grab our supplies and let's get started. Okay, I've got one of my white canvas pillow covers, and I have 2 pieces of cardboard in here. Right now they're all just pushed down to the bottom, and I've got it taped on the back, but as my design comes up to the top, I'll have to shake one of them up to the top to get the upper part of the design in there. It's just much easier to put in 2 smaller pieces of cardboard, and I do have them covered with Glad Press and Seal, than it is to try and put one big piece in here. Because of the way that this is sewn, this envelope type, it's hard to get one in there because you kind of got it, it's got to go underneath both pieces of fabric. So that makes it a little difficult to get a great big piece in here. So I'm going to lay my pattern on here. This is a big pattern for this pillow cover. I'm going to put a couple of pieces of tape on here to hold it in place. And then I'm going to slide my gray graphite paper underneath, and I'm just going to transfer on the flowers right now. I'm not going to transfer on my butterfly. I don't even have all my details on my butterfly yet. So I'll do this flower and these leaves, and then I'll move my graphite over. Now this will transfer on probably pretty dark. I didn't push very hard, so I can see my lines. You really want to try not to push super hard in case, you don't get your paint over to cover up your lines. You just want to be able to see your lines and where you are going with your paint. So just go ahead and transfer on all of your lines. And details we won't worry about right now. We just want basic outside lines of things. So you can see that flower now coming along pretty good. So I'm going to get the rest of it transferred on and then come back and we will begin painting. Okay, I've got my lines on here, and we can see them pretty good right now. So we're going to start adding some paint on here. Now I'm going to be using fabric paints. In my packet I will try to have a conversion for the paints that I'm using, so that you can use just regular acrylic paints with a fabric medium if you want. So I'm going to paint our stems in first, and I want them to be a darker green. So I'm going to use avocado, which we know avocado in Deco Art, they have this in the acrylic paints, this exact same color. So avocado for the stems, and you want to use good brushes, but not your best brushes. Because fabric's a little bit harder on your brushes than painting on a wood surface or some other surface. Even though this is a canvas fabric, it's a little bit more textured than a canvas is. So let's just begin painting in our stems. And we're using avocado here, and this is painting on this fabric beautifully. I bought all they had on the bolt when I bought this, so I may have to go back and see if they've got some more in. Because I think this is going to be a great one to paint on so many things. And I think I will probably paint this design on a regular canvas as well, a tall, narrow canvas. I have some of those, so I may paint it on one of those as well. These are just some daisies. I'm going to make sure I don't have paint on my hands. Anytime you pick up your pillow cover and touch it, make sure you do not have paint on your hands. I needed my cardboard to come down farther. It was not coming down as far as I needed it to be able to paint. It is important to, if you can, to tape your loose edges around the cardboard. That will keep your fabric from being loose on here and you getting highs and lows and bumps and things in your fabric. You want to be able to paint on a nice smooth surface. So having a piece of cardboard in there not only protects the back of the fabric, but makes it much easier for you to paint. And we'll do a couple of coats. So, okay, so let's paint the leaves in. And I am going to paint them in with, let me get my bottle opener over here. Let's see, this color is Bright Avocado. And I'm thinking, I think leaf green will be too dark. Probably mistletoe might be a close color for this one. Let's shake it up. I haven't opened this bottle, so I'll make sure it's shook up really good. Some of this out. See, it's a pretty light green, but we'll be doing lots of shading and things on here. Now I have daisies, these kind of daisies in my yard, and I've taken several pictures of them over the years. They are a beautiful pink color. But I am undecided if I'm going to paint these pink like I have in my yard, or if I'm going to paint them purple. You know, kind of mix it up a little bit. Let me see my line drawing here. Okay. Yeah, this petal actually goes over the leaf there. Couldn't quite see my line that I drew there, so I wanted to make sure what was going on. So I will be painting all my leaves in with 2 coats of this color. I'll go off camera and finish painting. I'm just going to show you this one leaf here on camera, because you know there's a few of them and this will take a little bit, and I don't want all of our camera time filled up with doing base coats. So Okay. So I will paint all my other leaves in with that color, and I will do 2 coats. So my petals now. I think I am going to go with like a pink petal. But the pinks that I have are kind of a dark color pink, although we want to build up to it. I don't want to hit that dark pink right off. So I think I'm going to use, I'm trying to think, my flowers are kind of a purpley pink. So this is a fuchsia color. And we do have royal fuchsia in acrylic paint. It's a little bit, maybe just a little bit brighter pink than this. And then this is dark rose, which is, well, of the paints that I have, I don't know, maybe it's not as dark as a raspberry, so you can kind of see the colors here. This is more on the purple side and this is more on the pink side. So I think I might start with this color, this fuchsia color, but I'm going to mix it with white. So I'm going to put both of those colors out on my palette. I want to start with a light pinkish purple color for my base color. So I'm going to take a little bit of that fuchsia color and mix it in with my white. I want it a little bit darker than that. I put out about equal amounts of the 2 paints because I didn't know how far I would have to go with this. Just a tiny bit more. So just mix this really nice light pinkish purple color. It's really light. It's mostly white. I would say it's probably 5 parts white to 1 part royal fuchsia, or not royal fuchsia, it's just fuchsia. If you're using regular acrylic paints, you'll probably use even less. And I'm going to paint my petals in with this color. Now I want all of my petals, actually I should probably paint my center in first, because all of my petals, and this paint is painting on this fabric just beautifully. I want all my petals to come into that center there. So I'm going to paint my center. The color we're going to paint the center is brown. We're going to use brown. It's kind of like a milk chocolate color maybe. So I'm going to put that out. I want to get the centers painted in before I paint my petals in. But you did see the mix there that I made for the petals, because the petals need to connect onto this center. So we're going to kind of loosely put the center in down here at the bottom. We don't want a straight line coming around, so don't make a straight line. Just kind of be irregular with that edge. We can always come in and do more to it later, but right now we just want to keep it where it's a little more. And then up here. And again, it will take 2 coats. Alright, so I think I'm going to go get my 2 coats on my centers at least, so I can come back and show you how the petals will connect to this. Aw, man. Look at that. I've got brown paint up there. I know I'm going to be stenciling across there, but that kind of bums me out. Alright, I'm going to get my 2 coats on. Okay, I decided that was a little bit too bright, so I'm equal mixing the bright avocado and the avocado. just picking up both on my brush and blending them in my brush a little bit. It's okay if we have a little bit of variance of color. That will actually work best in our favor. So just pick up both, blend on your brush, and we'll get a slight difference of color from our stems. I just felt like that was just a little bit too bright after it dried there. And again, it's still going to take 2 coats on everything, and this is, I'm still on my first coat. This spot that I got over here, which I tried to clean up and I couldn't, was because when I closed my bottle, I had it aimed this direction instead of at my palette, and a drop came out shooting off of the end of the bottle as I was closing it. And that's how that got there, in case you were wondering. Alright, I'm going to finish my first coat, or actually I'll finish 2 coats on the centers, on the stems and the leaves, and then I'll come back and show you how to connect the petals of the flowers. Okay, I have my 2 coats on my leaves and my stems and my centers. So now let me go back to my petals and show you that mix. So you'll want to wait to get your mix in, get it done. We want to pull the petal into the center, and we've got to do some stuff to the center, so we may have to come back and repaint these in. So I might just go finish the centers out, and then when we pull these into it, we won't have to come back and paint over them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop up my mix and put it in here so I don't have to mix some more later. You won't have to do this, because if you're watching the video and not painting yet, you will know not to make your mix until, and I'll probably have to make some more anyway. Don't make your mix until you get your centers done. So I'm just going to put it in this little bitty container here so I can pull it out later and mix some more. I'm going to spritz a little bit of water in there because there's a little bit of air that's going to be in this container. That will help keep it from drying out while it's in here. Clean my edge off and then just close it and keep it handy. If you don't have a container to put it in, don't worry about it. We can mix more, so don't feel like it's a tragedy if you've already mixed some. Okay, we're going to finish out the centers and then put our coats on our petals. Okay, I put some black and some bittersweet orange on my palette right here. Now, bittersweet orange, pretty close to burnt orange if you are using acrylic paints. And let me grab a round brush here. Let's see if this will work with a round brush. I might have to get a just a flat brush and try it. I'm not sure this color is going to show up too much on here. So let me pull out a little bit of I don't know, buttermilk might be too light. I'll get shook up here. Okay, make sure you don't have any paint on your hands. I'm going to mix, this is bittersweet orange, which is pretty close to burnt orange in a regular acrylic paints, and then this is buttermilk, and that comes in a regular acrylic paints as well. So let's go a 2 orange to 1 buttermilk, and see if this will show up on here. I want it to be a little bit more on the orange side. grab some more of the orange. And I'm just pulling little strokes onto this. I don't know if you've seen coneflowers. Coneflowers in my yard attract butterflies and bees and finches. And they all like to nibble on these centers. Get that just a little bit darker coming out of there. I don't want it to be so light. And we're just pulling strokes. I'm getting more of the just orange now. Bittersweet orange is what I'm using. So I'm going to tip into the white because I want it to look like there is, or the buttermilk, not white. I want it to look like there's another layer here. And this is kind of working wet into wet. And go back to the darker orange. Or just pick up the orange and do a little bit more of this color, and then we'll come back in with some lighter colors. I mean, you can really make the centers here any color that appeals to you. I'm going to grab a little bit of the buttermilk now. We're going to go down a little bit farther with this orange color. And then we're going to start adding some black in here. Just the bittersweet orange now. And I'm just using a round brush, staying up on the very tip of the brush, just pulling a few strokes. If it's easier for you to do it with a flat brush or a filbert brush, then go ahead and use that kind of brush. Whatever kind of brush works best for you when you're pulling little stroke things in here. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm not going to clean it. I'm going to take my orange and my black and mix them together. Just a tiny bit of black. We're going to start adding some darker in here. I'm not sure we'll be able to see that. A little bit more mix here. This is not a pure black yet. It is orange and black mixed together, which almost makes a dark green. I'm just going to go right over that petal that I painted in there. I'm going to repaint it. Bring some of this up just a little bit into that orange. Start creating a little bit more depth in here. Do a little bit more of this mix in here. I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of buttermilk and add some highlights right through here. Just tipped into it and barely blended it on my brush. We get a little bit of highlight going on there, and now we want to go into just straight black and finish out all the way down with just black. And I'm kind of wanting that orange to be a little bit more on the red side, I think. I'm not sure what color I'm going to make my butterfly. I was going to make it a monarch colors, but if I keep that orange, I won't be able to do that because it will, the butterfly will be the same color as the cones, tops, and so I don't want that to happen. I'm going to grab a little bit of buttermilk on the end and blend it a little bit with that black and try and create a few highlights into here. Just pick up some on the tip and very gently, lightly blend it with that black, but don't completely blend it together. Wipe off my brush and grab a little bit more black. This will be pretty dark down here at the bottom. So I'm going to kind of fill this in with some black here. Start walking a little bit of this black up into that. I want it to be a little bit darker up through here, not quite so orangey. Keep that orange there, give it some depth. Okay, a little bit more of the, actually I'm going to wash my brush out, I think. And then grab some light buttermilk for the very tips of this. I think I'm going to have to make my butterfly a different color than what I planned on. I'll just have to see when I get it done how it looks. I mean, I can still come back in and glaze on here with some reddish colors. Okay, so the other one will be done the exact same way that we just did that one. I want to get this dry because I want to float some black along the bottom down here, and I can't do that while it's wet. I really want this to be really, really, really rich dark down through here, and I can't do that while it's still wet, so I am going to let this get dry here. And then we will add some more black. Okay, I decided I wanted this to be a little bit more red on the top because I want to make my butterfly orange colors. So even though we've got the orange on there, that's perfect. I'm going to take some transparent medium and a little bit of Santa Red and work a little bit of that into my brush. And then with my flat brush, I'm just going to create some choppy stuff going on here and work some of this red into the top here. I like it a little bit better than the orange, so when I go up and do that one I may just use the red, but the orange underneath there kind of looks nice. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush out and load it with some black and come the opposite direction. Make sure I don't have any paint on my hand because I'm going to be touching my fabric here. And I'm just using a flat brush here. This is a 12 flat, but you can use whatever size you want. And I'm up on the very chisel edge, just chopping. And work some of this into that. And that looks much better. I am much happier with that than the orange. Although that orange laid a nice little undercoat on there, so I might just go ahead and keep that undercoat of orange. I'm going to just tip a corner of my brush, just barely, into some of that buttermilk. Blend it a little bit on the corner. I want to create just a few little highlights on here. Not too many. Just a few. Choppy choppy. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush out. I'm going to have to let this layer dry. I'm going to load just a corner with some buttermilk, just a little bit, and choppy choppy. I'm tilting the brush up so I'm just on the very corner of it and just barely tickling that onto the upper area here, creating a little bit of a highlight on it as well. Okay. I still want to float black down here, so I need to get that dry, but we can go up here and work on this one. So I think instead of using my round brush, it was much faster with this flat brush. I'm going to use this flat brush. So I'm going to start again with my orange and a little bit of buttermilk. A lot more orange than that. And I'm just going to put some choppy choppies up through here. I'll be coming back with the red mix and putting that in there. I'm going to go into some black and mix that on my brush so we can have a little bit of a transition going on here, not just into straight black. Kind of vary how it goes in there. Don't let it all be still got some of that orange in my brush. So if you run out of paint, mix a little bit. Now I'm just going to get black and just use black. Choppy choppy. I'll come back and define this a little bit. And that one's really dark in there. Alright, I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to dry that a little bit before we add our transparent color on there. My dark color got way up in there, so I might add a little bit of orange back through here. And kind of bring that orange down a little bit. Maybe get a tiny bit of light buttermilk in there. The black is wet, so the black's going to just continue to mix with it. Okay, I'm going to load my brush with my transparent medium and grab a little bit of Santa Red and blend that into my brush a little bit and start adding this in here. I've got that transparent medium, so it's creating this really nice transparent color. I want to definitely come out past that line. because that's how they are. Come down into that black. I'm going to get a little bit of light buttermilk on the toe of my brush, just a tiny bit. And we'll add some highlights up in here. Choppy choppy, don't keep them in a row. We don't want a row on there. You want to kind of move around and give it some character. I'm going to wipe my brush off and then load. I'm going to get a little bit of black on my brush, not very much, and then go into the light buttermilk, and that's going to keep that being quite so bright on here. And then choppy choppy. Got a little bit more of my red. And choppy choppy. And then I just want black. And I'm just going to take the black up this direction. It's going to be darkest down here at the base. And we still want to float along the bottom here, okay? Go into some of that highlight. We don't want, you know, a ton of highlight down here, so go into it a little bit and kind of knock it back just a little bit. Bring some of the darker stuff up into that red, just a little bit that you have on your brush. And I think that will be good for that. Not quite dry, so we need to get those completely dry before we can shade along the bottoms here. Alright, I'm going to side load my 12 flat brush for floating. So we just dip one corner into the black, and I'm going to work it into my brush with just a little bit of water, and work it with that water to get it a nice soft float. Make sure I don't have any paint on my hands anywhere, because I'm getting ready to pick up my pillow cover, and we're going to float along down here. And on this one, I don't really want to see any of that brown now. That brown was just kind of an undercoating for this. We probably could have got by with just one coat of it. I was originally going to make these brown. You know, I design on camera, so you never know how it's going to work out. So I want to put a few darker ones in the red. Just a little bit that's left on my brush, and I think that will help. Bring that together a little bit more. Okay, that's looking really good. I did take my, while I was waiting for that to dry, I did take my charcoal pencil, because it's the only thing I could get to write on this fabric paint, and I wrote very, very lightly, just kind of scrubbed in where my lines are, my stems are on my leaves. This one has a fold right here, and then this one has a fold here, and a vein here, and then a vein down this one. Okay, so I just did that with this pencil while this up here was drying. So I think that's dry enough that we can move on to painting in our petals. So I'm going to go and get my little mix that I made out of my container. I know I'm going to have to mix a lot more of it, but and I'm trying to decide if I even want to stay with this color or if I want to go with a more purple. The ones that I have in my flower garden are a pink color, like we're starting here. They're pink, but I'm just going to fill my little container with some water and set it aside so that paint doesn't dry in there so I can go rinse it at my sink later. So I like the pink that we've kind of started with here, but I'm kind of leaning towards a little bit more of a purpley pink color. I'm not sure because this is kind of red up through here, and so I want the my flower petals to be, yeah, I think I want them to be a little more purpley pink. So I'm going to grab some purple. Okay, I've got lavender and white here. So I'm going to take a little bit of lavender into my white and make this nice light purple color. Maybe just a tiny bit more. It's a really light purple color, and lavender is a color that is in the acrylic line, so converting that color will be very easy. So now I think I'll paint this color on, make sure I don't have any paint because I'm getting ready to pick up my cover, and I think I'll paint with this color. And I'm going to leave those two kind of pink right now. When I come back for the second coat, I'll paint this lavender on top. But I want to pull, see, this is how they connect into there. And that one might be connected on the back, so we may not necessarily need to have a connection there. So they just kind of come to a and they actually connect to the base of the center, so I think I might take that one off and make that black there. And then there's one here in between. And this can be one that's more behind. And I don't have one in between those. I may come in and add one because I feel like that's a little bit too big of a gap right there, so I think I'm going to add one right here. And then this one is on top. This one here. And as we start adding details onto these, we will determine which petals are on top and which are more behind or on the other side. We can see some of the other side ones hanging down on this side a little bit. So I'll just show you the base coats on this one. the other one will be done the same way. We'll do 2 coats of this lavender mix. Mostly white and a little bit of lavender. If you stay more up on the tip of the brush when you're painting in these petals, it really does make it a little bit easier to get the paint to go into the fabric. We'll not be able to tell between the two here and after we get that one painted because they're so close together. So we'll have to make sure we know where one starts and one stops. So we've got the first coat on that flower. I'm going to put the first coat on this one, let it dry, and then apply a second coat on all my petals. Okay, let's begin working on our leaves. I've got my 2 coats on my petals, and we're going to come back to those in just a minute. I want to work on the stems and the leaves. So we are going to begin shading on the stem first, and I'm going to take some of the avocado, which is what I basted in. Oh, let me get my brush. Woke up. Fill it up with water, lay it on my paper towel, and wick out the excess water. Now it's ready to go. Alright, avocado and a little bit of black, and this will be our shading color, our first color. We probably will darken this and intensify it. We'll shade right here next to this stem, and I think we're going to have to bring some green right through there. If I leave that open, we're going to see that area of the stem. So let's put some green through here where we can actually see the stem going through there. That's just the avocado. We'll come back and shade that in a minute and push it all back behind. And then we'll go next to this leaf here and walk it out just a little bit. There's just a little bit of black mixed in here. We will definitely be darkening this, not to worry. We want to go down each side of the stem as well. So I'm going to tilt my brush up so that I'm mostly on the tip of the brush and just work a little bit down the edges. Oh, let me get make sure I don't have any paint on my fingers. I need to get my cardboards down to the bottom. I'm just going along that edge. I've got a little bit of water in my brush, not a lot. I'm going to go along the other side. I'm just doing a brush mix. It's probably 2 of the avocado to 1 black. When we darken this, it may be more of the other direction or equal mixes. We'll just have to see how it needs to go. Okay, let's go up in here and shade all of this. I'm probably going to bring my black over this green here because that will really push it back, but we're going to make this mostly dark in here. I'm going to grab just some straight black on my brush and bring it over that green so it pushes that green more behind that flower. But where we had our stem coming, we had to have a little bit of that green showing there. Okay, I'm going to highlight with my Bright Avocado, which we use the mix of the two greens on the leaves. So we're going to brighten with Bright Avocado, I can't even talk, first. We're going to come back and darken probably on that shading. So I am just going to load my brush with the green and then dab it off on my paper towel so there's not a ton on there. And I'm just going to streak it down the center here and start developing a highlight down the center. Okay, I'm going to let the stem set now. I need those layers to get dry before I can come back and darken and intensify the colors that I have on there. Okay, let's move out to our leaves. I'm going to start with just avocado and see if it will even show up. It may not even show up on this leaf because it is in the base color and not too much. So again, we're going to add just a tiny bit of black in there. Just a small amount. Just to slightly darken the green so we can get it to show up on our leaf. So we're going to begin the shading, and we're going to shade at the back. And just pity-pat walk it out. That's the easiest way to do it. Don't feel like you have to be one giant swoop in there. Again, I still have a little bit of moisture in my brush. Go along the edge here, pity-pat, 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 walk it out. Bring it up into the leaf just a little bit. I'm hoping you can see that color. It's not super crazy darker than the leaf itself. And then this leaf just kind of turns down here. Okay, we also want to use this color to make our vein. So I'm just going to be up on the very corner of the brush and just kind of scoot my brush across to create a line there and create a little bit of a vein. Okay, let's go up to the next one. This is the base of this one. And all the leaves will be done the same. So I'll finish these two leaves out and probably this one, and then these two I'll go do off camera. They're just done the exact same way. Alright, a little bit of the mix there. I need some water, so let me spritz my palette with some water here. Clean water. You need clean water when you're floating so you don't get cast shadows on everything. Get color where you don't want color. So important to have clean water. And we're going to come down this edge just a little bit. And I'm going to bring it over on this one a little bit more. I want it to really come out farther. You could go to a much bigger brush as you're painting these leaves. Would probably make it a little bit easier. And then just kind of walk some of that out. We've got a turned edge here, so we want to see that. we shade a little bit right there to start giving it its turned look. We'll come back and highlight on it. Let's create our center vein. It's coming from here. This is kind of a turned and twisted leaf here. So the vein comes from back there. Bring it down, and then we'll see some of it in the tip here. Okay, so now we can see that that leaf is folded. It's folded at the back, and then it's folded here. So it's got two folds on it. Okay. All right, let's move out to this one. Again, it's, oops, paint on the wrong side of my brush there. It's the avocado and black, just a tiny bit of black. Don't go crazy. And we'll go next to the stem here. Make sure you don't have paint on your hand when you're moving your... I'll probably repeat that over and over and over again, but we want to make sure we don't have paint, and we're not, when we're turning our pillow cover, we're not turning it into our palette of paint. So you always have to be aware of where your pillow cover is and what is on your hands. Going around this petal now. Too much black in my mix, so I'm adding some more green in there. Alright, I'm up. I've got my brush rotated up so I can go right beside that flower, because the tip of that one comes really close to this one. And this is going to be all pretty dark in here because we're going to go next to each petal and right next to this one. So there's just a small amount in the center of that that does not have paint. Okay, same thing up here. I'm going to go around our petals. A little bit of water in my brush so I can move it. Fabric, painting on fabric is completely different than painting on a wood surface. So there is a little bit of a learning curve. You have to learn how to really kind of pity-pat your paint when you're painting on fabric. It's not just a smooth painting technique like you would do on a wood surface. And make sure you do not go out into your background because you cannot clean up on fabric. So if you are in tight places, either go to a smaller brush or do like I'm doing. I just have paint a little bit on the corner and I'm tilting my brush up so that I don't get the other side of my bristles out into the background, and I can keep it right where I need to keep it, which is right next to that petal. And I want a little bit here. That's kind of a V. I think we're going to do shading along this edge, and maybe, I don't know, I haven't decided yet which side's going to be shading and highlighting. Let me take a look at it prospectively and see what I think after I go around all these petals. Pity pat, pull, pull, pull. Pity pat, pull, pull, pull. That's the best way I can tell you to do it. Alright, this one has a turned edge as well. Okay, so yeah, this side I'm going to make my highlight side. That side's all going to be the shadow side. So we can go back in here and go along, or the shaded side. So we can go back along the edges here with our shading color. And out here on this edge. down along this front edge part way. So it's giving it a little bit of a fold there. And then this edge right here, I think we'll shade. It'll be more on the shadow side of this fold. Now let's create our vein in here. So we're going to come up. Just right along that line that you drew in there, if you can still see it. And then we'll see some of it coming from down here. Okay? In the folded part. Okay, so that's got our shading going here, and this fold here really bothers me. I don't think it's quite how I want it to be, so I am going to see if I can't change this. I think I'll just bring my highlight over onto that. Okay, I'm going to highlight with just the, what am I using? Bright green? Bright avocado. So let me see if I can fix this fold to where I like it a little bit better. Find my line drawing. I actually think this needs to go up a little bit higher on the shading. So I'm going to mix my shading color again. Way too much black there. So we want it to go up and over. Let's kind of curve that a little bit. I think that's going to look much better. And then we'll come down this edge here. And that looks better. Alright, back to our highlights here. Okay, let's go back into our highlight color here. And I'll restroke that. Now I need to bring some dark shading over here on that edge to make it look folded. So grab my dark mix, turn my pillow, make sure I don't have anything on my hands, and we're going to shade right here. A little bit of shading, help give that a little bit of a folded over look. And I think I might do the same thing here on this one because it's got this little bit of bend here, although it's not turned under there. It's just got that little bit of bend, and I think it needs a little bit of shadow, or shading, not shadow, but shading along that edge there. Alright, back to my highlight color. And I probably will brighten and deepen on these. We just have to get our first done. And I'm not going to add, I don't think right now I'm going to add tons of detail onto the leaves. I may change my mind as I paint this. Right now I'm thinking I won't add veins into them, except for the center vein, which we will create a highlight right next to. Okay, let me do this one now. might put a little bit of shadow in, or shading in that part right there. A little bit there. And go next to the center. Just pull that paint out. A little bit that's on the corner of your brush, just kind of let it pull out there. I'm going to bring this into the leaf by pity pat, walk it out. And here I'm going to pity pat, kind of walk that in. I think I'll do the same up here. Create a little bit more of a highlight right along here, give it more of a turned. Okay. I'm going to darken that little spot right there on the edge. Our shading mix right here. Just give it a little bit of a, you can add little chewed places from insects on here. I mean, you know, all that will help make it look much more realistic, and I may do that here in a little bit, but I haven't decided yet. If you do that, you really need to leave some of the background open. So I'm going to go over to this one now, but I could put like a spot, you know, like something is on the leaf. Go along this edge. Walk that in just a little bit in between those petals. Up on the tip of my brush right here, because I'm going really close to my background, and I want to make sure that it doesn't get into my background. So we got a little bit of a highlight here. I might put just a kiss of a highlight right there. Even though I shaded right there, I think I might just kiss that little high spot right there. Front here with a little highlight, and then we'll do next to our center vein. A little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Have all those highlights coming through there. A little bit here. I feel like this needs a lot more highlight through here. Okay, then we'll come back and repeat everything. But before I do that, I'm going to let those layers dry. I'm going to go finish the other two leaves off of camera and then come back and we will work on darkening and brightening on our leaves. Okay, I've decided I want to put some veins in here. So I'm going to take that avocado with a tiny bit of black in it. And I'm going to create some veins in here. And so just wherever but you can leave this part off if you want. You don't have to put veins in yours. Totally optional. It's a little bit wide there, so I'm just going to wipe a little bit of that back. I just drew my lines on with my charcoal pencil. I'm going to go down here and do this one. I'm just floating a little bit of this mix right next to the lines that I put on here. This one here. I only see a few of the veins because it's mostly covered up. Okay, then we'll take our light green, which is bright avocado, and we'll do a little highlight next to those veins we just put in. And then we're going to create a brighter color to add on here. To darken our shading on our leaves. So the veining part will definitely be an optional step. If you don't want to do the veins, then you certainly don't have to. Just a little bit here because that part, those veins are in the shadowy areas. And we're just doing like the center part of this vein. We're not going all the way into the tip. I don't think I put any down there. Okay, that's got us a nice beginning for a highlight there on our veins. So now we want to really darken our shaded areas, and we're also going to brighten our highlights in some key places. But to darken, we're going to take that avocado and add more black to it. So we're going to get a really very dark, almost black color. It's a really, really dark green here. And we're going to put this in our darkest areas. I also want to put it next to the center vein a little bit, just in the center of our other veins. So that's just going to be like a little tiny mark next to that vein, if you can tell where it's at. But we definitely want to get darker at the base, where our more darkest areas are in our folded areas. And I'm going to add a little bit more black to it when I go up here underneath. But for now, we're just going to keep this just a little bit. We don't want it to take over. We just want it in a few key places. And this should go pretty quickly because we're just doing much smaller areas than we did before. I'm going to go next to this flower and darken that just a little bit. Right next to the center vein. And then I'm going to be up on the tip and get some in these sections here that separate, or where the flower petals are over, because these are the darkest areas right through here, and we want them to stay dark. So I'm going to continue on around and finish out all of my leaves. I want to do this folded area here. And darken that. I don't think I darkened this one, so let me darken this one, and then I'll just go off camera and finish that one out because it's just done the same as the other ones, and we don't want our camera time getting crazy long. So this one I had shading that came around quite a bit on this one, so we'll just darken just a little bit next to our center vein and our side veins just in the centers. Okay, alright, I'm going to go off camera and finish that and we'll come back and put our brightest highlight on then. Okay, before I add my brightest highlight on here, I'm going to add another highlight down the center of just the bright avocado color. Down the center of my stems here. Kind of brighten those up a little bit. And then I want to add some yellow. Let's add some bright yellow into our green and really get it a nice bright color. So I'm just going to dip into my yellow and my green. Maybe yellow 2 times. I want this to really be bright. Bright and bold and really pop. And I'm going to put this along my highlight edge, just not a complete flow of paint here. Two yellows, one green, and put a little bit next to our center veins and our smaller veins coming out. And I want a little bit more brightness here. I think I'm going to walk this into leaf a little bit. I think I really need to make that part dark. Okay, so all of the leaves will get this brightest highlight of this yellow mix. Pull a little bit into the centers next to the center vein, and a little bit next to our veins that come out from the center. Might have to brighten even one more time brighter than this. Pull some in between. Okay, I'll go off camera and finish the other two. They'll be done the same way. There's not as many places to highlight on those, so it won't take as long. More yellow in my mix right there. Alright, I'm going to go next to my center vein and next to my side veins. Okay, I'm going to go finish the other two, and I will put some of this mostly yellow, maybe a little bit more yellow and less green, down my stems. Okay, let me go finish the other two. Okay, I'm going to brighten up a little bit more with my highlight, so I'm going to show you how to do that on one leaf, then I'll go finish it, because it's done just like the rest of them. But first, I want to, my dark color was just taking over my whole stem. So I mixed a little bit of the bright green and the avocado, and I'm bringing that in over the dark just slightly. And then I'll come back with my brightest highlight. Now my brightest highlight is going to be a mix of white and yellow. One yellow, two whites I think maybe. Or it could be an equal mix, whatever works best for your project, because your colors values might be a little bit different than mine. So just adjust accordingly. And I'm just going to go on to a few of the brightest areas on the leaf and add a little bit of a highlight on there. And when you get done, if you feel like it is just way too bright, you can come back with that bright green and kind of wash, even though we're on fabric, you can kind of wash some of that bright green over it. Okay, just a few places to give it a little bit of brightness in here. Don't let it go too much. Like I said, you can come and kind of wash it back with a little bit of the bright green if it gets too bright. So see, that one was pretty easy. A little bit, just a tiny scooch there. And then this one will be done the same way. So I'll go off camera and finish that. We'll come in and connect our leaves, and then we're going to work on our flower petals. Okay, I have all my leaves done. I feel like my stem and my leaves are too close to the same color, and I want them to be different colors. So I'm going to take some of my yellow and just make a wash out of it. So it's mostly water. And I'm just going to glaze this over the stem and try and bring it more to a yellow green color. If it takes down your highlight too much, then just come back with some white. So I'm just going to get a little bit of white on the edge of my brush and put a little bit of that in through there. Create a little bit more of a highlight. So I'm going to let those dry and see if I need to repeat that yellow on there again, because I definitely want the stems to be a different color than the leaves. So if they aren't, adjust your colors and that will help. So we're going to attach all of our leaves now, and we're going to take our avocado. You want to thin it with just a little bit of water. Not, if you can get by with not thinning it too much, that will help the paint adhere best to your project. So I'm just going to first come in with a little bit of the avocado. You can put a little bit of tiny black in there if you would like to. We're going to add some black here in a minute. And I think it's just mostly these two. This one we can go ahead and add a little bit of a stem. I need to darken this edge right here. It's just kind of connected right there. And so I might make this a little bit bigger, so I'm going to mix a little bit more avocado with a little bit of black. Make that just a little bit fatter of a stem. And this one's going to come in and connect behind that leaf. We won't see where it's actually connecting. I'm going to take a little bit of black just right there on my dirty brush. And oh, this should be coming this direction. So let me take some green and mix in with that. I got my veins here, this part wrong. Okay, a little tiny bit of black, and we'll put a little bit of black where it connects to the stem. And then a little touch of the lighter green, if it will show up on there for just a little bit of a highlight. I think I'll have to wash my brush out because it's... Mix a tiny bit of white in with that green. We just want to highlight this just a little bit. Okay, take my black, finish this one out. I want it to connect there. Grab a little bit of green and just barely blend that out. And then we can highlight it with some green and white mix, whatever is going to show up the best. Just a little bit of a highlight on there. Okay, and then I think I want to put some black down here on this one. Bring it into the center. A little bit of avocado. Take that down just a little bit right there. A little bit of avocado mixed in with it. Try and get it back to our base color a little bit. Okay, I think that works pretty good for that. So let's get ready to start on our petals now. Now this whole project I've only used these two brushes, which is a 12 flat and a 1 round. So that's all I've used for this whole project. So let's get ready to paint in these petals. Okay, we're going to start working on our petals here. And we are going to begin shading them with our lavender. So we mix lavender and white for our base coat. First I am adding some of this color where the ones that are behind a little bit, so we can kind of start creating the ones that are on top. So just taking a little bit of lavender and kind of pulling it down these petals that are maybe a little bit more behind, or one is more in front of the other one, and creating a little bit of depth this way. So that's kind of already putting the ones that are on top on top. Okay, over here we don't have as many that are behind like on that one, so I'm going to go next to the one that is maybe slightly over a petal. This one is definitely behind. I'm just side loading and just using the corner of that brush. Pull a little bit of paint down. And we want to go around this petal here. And this one. I'll go back down to this one real quick and do on this one right beside, and I think this one is a little bit behind. I do have a little bit of water in my brush, so I'll put a little bit right here where these two are kind of touching just a little bit. And then I want that one to be on top, so I'm going to shade right here. A little bit of color along the edge of this one. So we make sure we have a little bit of this shading, so we can definitely, determine the petals as best we can. Okay, now I want to take a little bit of this lavender, and I want to begin going at the base of these and pulling out just some, if I can pull out just some strokes into these petals. I want it dark, a little bit darker back there where it connects to the center of the flower. So I'm going to put a little bit right there and then just pull some streaks into the petal. Okay. Even these back ones here, if we can see a little bit on those, we'll pull a little bit. Some of them are pretty full. Go up here and do these. A bit more paint. Just lightly on the edge of the brush, so you've got to have a little bit of water just to help it flow off of that corner. I'm still just side loading that paint just on the corner of the brush. Now if you need to use like a liner to do that, you certainly can, but as long as you stay up on the very corner of that brush and just let it glide across the fabric there, you should get a nice look to those petals. Alright, we're going to put out some Dioxanine Purple now, and we're going to take a little bit of that and mix some lavender in it. A 1-to-1 mix I think should be alright here. And we're going to start darkening these ones that are behind. I've just got it on the corner of the brush, a little bit of water side loaded in my brush, so I can just kind of pull that paint down into that petal. It's almost like a wash of color. An equal mix is what we're doing. And we're putting it on all the ones that are behind. Of course, that one's kind of on top there, so we just want this one edge because it's behind this one. And we want to go around this. I'm going to get a little bit more water in my brush. Just pick up a drop of water and blend it in with that paint a little bit, and that will give us a smoother transition here and not lay in any hard color. Okay, and then up to this one. We're just doing the ones behind right now. I need just a little bit darker here on this one. And this one up here doesn't have as many behind, so we will go into those areas that need a little bit of shading with this mix. I feel like this one needs to be just a tiny bit darker. That's looking pretty good. Go down a little bit farther on this one here. This petal is almost completely behind back there. And I might end up making it one that's on the other side of the center just by coming in and tapping more dark right there when we get done. Okay, that was Dioxanine Purple. I do want to put a little bit of the Dioxanine Purple on our top flowers, or our top petals, but I want it to be pretty sheer, so I'm going to, Dioxanine Purple is a transparent color anyway, so I'm going to mix it with a little bit of water to make it really sheer. And then we'll put just a little bit of this at the bases. This is just a wash of color, mostly water, just a little bit of color in there. At the bases. Just washing it on. All we did was tint a little bit of water with that purple. And right there where they connect into the flower. Now I think I want to bring in maybe another color in here. Let's see, do I want a rose color to put on here? Let's see if I'm going to like this rose color on here. Add a little bit of this rose. I'm just doing a wash here to see if I'm going to like it. And blend it into that other color. It's still wet, so we can blend easily. And we could probably use our Santa Red if you wanted to make it more of a red color. This is a very light, well, I mean, when I add water to it, it's a pretty light pink color. So it's called dark rose. Oh no, that's fuchsia. I guess we're adding fuchsia in there. I was thinking I had dark rose out. Okay, we're adding fuchsia in there. No wonder that didn't quite look rosy. But fuchsia is a good complement to this lavender color, so I think it's going to be a good. Remember, we're just tinting water, mixing it in there. Just a little wash, kind of like we did with that Dioxanine Purple just a little minute ago. We're not going all the way down the petal, just about a third to a half of the way. This one here I need to definitely add a little bit more in there. Go up here to this one. Not sure how well this is This color is showing up on the camera shot. But we'll probably come back and repeat this color. Remember, it's just a wash. If you're getting really dark color on here, then you've got too much paint in your water mixture. Those petals are looking so pretty. I really like that fuchsia on there. I definitely want to darken the fuchsia and the Dioxanine Purple. I'm going to let this dry just a little bit so that we can come back and really add some deep rich color on here. Okay, this is probably dry enough for us to move on. So I'm going to take straight Dioxanine Purple now, a good little load on my brush. Spritz my palette with some water. And we're going to darken at the base pretty much of all of our petals. This is straight Dioxanine. And I think we'll come back and add a little bit more of the fuchsia color on here. That's going to be light there. I love layering colors that are transparent, and Dioxanine Purple is a transparent color. We really want them to be dark where they connect to the center of the flower. And after this layer dries, we may bring this Dioxanine Purple down a little bit farther into our petals. But for now, we're just going to keep it back here. I'm just side-loaded straight Dioxanine Purple. I really don't have any water in my brush. You know, my brush is damp, but it's not got water in it because I don't want it to thin this paint out. And there we have our first little darkening back there. Oh, these are looking so pretty. Okay, we're gonna add some more color on here, on our petals. And I've got that royal fuchsia in there a little bit, and I think I'm going to do that color again for sure. So I'm going to load my brush. I've got a new color I might bring in, but I'm not 100% sure because we used that Santa Red or whatever it was up here. Yeah, Santa Red. I don't know if I want to bring that color into this or just stay with the purples and pinks. I think the red, if I put it out, is going to be just too dark or stark of a color. So I'm going to load with my transparent medium and then royal fuchsia. I want to make a nice transparent color here. And I'm going to work this color just by scrubbing it into our petals. And this is going to give a nice, should give a nice glaze of color on here. And that transparent medium will help keep it a little bit more transparent. It'll dry a lighter color. I'm not sure they're going to be as bright of petals as I would like, so I think I may have to use that other pink color, which is, it's a dark rose color in fabric paint. I haven't used it anywhere yet, and I don't plan on using that particular color in the butterfly. So I may have to put, if I use it, I may have to use a little bit of it out here just to kind of bring all the colors together. I don't think these are going to be quite as bright of petals as I would like. This fuchsia color is, it's not, to me it's not as bright as like the royal fuchsia in Americana and the, just the Americana acrylics. We still have our highlights to put on here as well. I think that really helped make them pop just a little bit, but I think I'm going to test the waters, load my brush with the royal, not the royal, the transparent medium, and get a little bit of the dark rose on my brush, and just see if I'm gonna want to use this color just to make that a little bit, maybe not on every petal, so let's just select a few on each flower and put some of this dark rose on. Sure we can tell much of a difference. I've got it blending a little bit with that. That fuchsia was still in my brush. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this rose color and just tap a little bit up here. It may or may not show up well because all those dark colors on there, but we'll get it up there and just bring a little bit of this into it. I'm going to get my black. I need to bring some black into a few places here. Like right here. I need some black. Kind of even out that center. Go ahead and clean up around where they connect. This give them a little bit more shape. So I'm just tapping some black in there. You know, if there's a white area that doesn't quite look right. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Let's start adding some highlights on our petals now. We're going to add it with some white. I still think I may come back with the Dioxanine Purple and darken up right where they connect. I think it's going to need that, but let's go with some white right now. And we're going to put some white on the tips and streak some into our petals, and wherever a petal is over another one, we want to put a little bit of white on there. I'm really not sure. This is going to fade down in there a little bit, so I'm not sure how much of it's going to end up staying on here. I might have to get my media acrylics out so I can wash some brighter color on here. I think it might need that. And then this one is on top here. Okay, the white helps some. I still feel like it's missing some brightness, so let me finish this one out with some white. I'm going to do all the tips first and then come back and streak some white in all of them. a couple more. Just going on the tips and the edge that is on top of another. I got enough paint here to pull some streaks in here. Okay, I'm going to wide angle out because you can always get a better perspective when it's wide angled out. So it's looking pretty good. I think we're going to wash some color on these. Let me grab my Dioxanine Purple. I really wanted these to be more of a purple flower, so I think I'm going to create a wash. So I got my paint here on my palette. I'm going to grab some water and create a wash. Mostly water, not much paint. And I'm going to wash over. Stay in your petals because this is a wash. If you go outside your petals at all, it's going to be in your fabric. So you have to make sure you're being careful and just going out to that tip. I'm not sure this is making much difference, but I'm going to go with it. And take a look at it. I want to darken at the base of them. I might do a mix of Dioxanine Purple and black to get it just a little bit darker at the bases of them. Definitely going to paint this on a canvas. Oop, got out of line right there. Can't do anything about that now. Got purple paint in my background. But I think I would probably use media fluid acrylics on it. Okay, let me darken at the base of this one with a little mix of black and Dioxanine Purple. Down in the petals just a little bit. This is that mix, Dioxanine Purple with a little bit of black. Dioxanine Purple is a transparent color, so I need more on this one. Okay, I like that darker at the base. So let me do the other flower. I'll just go do it off camera so we're not running up camera time here, repeating the same thing. Okay, wash over your petals again after you get your dioxazine and black mix on there, and with the rose, the dark rose, or whatever color you'd like. You can use media fluid acrylics like a quinacridone magenta. It's pretty close to that color once it's washed down, but you're just using a wash. And now I'm taking some black and side loading a thin coat of black. My leaves need to be darker at the base of them, and some of these turned places need to be darker. I already put black on there. So this is just a sheer float of black. That means I've got some water in my brush and I'm blending it on the corner, the paint on the corner with the water so it doesn't stay too dark. And we just need to put some in some of these dark areas. Just wasn't quite, the darkness just wasn't quite popping out like it should. Keep this nice and sheer. If you get it too dark, I mean, if you like yours the way it is, then don't do this. But if you get it too dark, your leaves are just going to become black leaves. So, and I did wash over my stems here with another layer of that bright green. And then while it was wet, streaked some white down the middle for a highlight. Okay, I think that helps, gives our leaves a little bit. Oh, missed a spot up here. Let me do some up here. That little V, I'm going to very thinly go across there. And then we've got a little bit of a V right here. And I think that will finish off our flowers and our leaves. I think I'm going to call those pretty darn good. I think they look so pretty. So now I'm going to get my pattern and transfer my butterfly shape on, and we are going to paint in the butterfly. Okay, before I start painting in my butterfly, I decided to bring some of that dark rose that I put in my petals and bring it out and put a little bit on the leaves. So I'm just going in a few places and putting in just a light layer of this, and then I will come back and probably repeat in a few places. I just want to carry this color around a little bit because that's the only place that I have it is in the flowers. So I just want to put a little bit of it here and there. And, you know, you can come back and repeat and darken that if you want. Don't have to. Just kind of blend it out a little bit. And just bring a little bit of that pink around. I think that's going to help a little bit keep your eye going around it. those dry. I may come back and darken on those. Let's move up to our butterfly. Make sure your cardboard, make sure there's no paint on your fingers before you pick up your fabric. Make sure your cardboard is at the top. Now, it's all over mine. Lint, fuzz. That looks like paint there. Green paint. And it is, so I'm not going to disturb it. I'm just going to leave it and let it dry right there. It's a little dot of green. Okay. Leave that up there tight against the top. And I'm going to paint my butterfly in with some orange and yellow colors. I'm going to make it a monarch butterfly. We'll do all the color in it first, and then we'll come back with the black and do the outlining and stuff. So I think I'm going to use some cadmium orange hue and some, that's the bright yellow I've been using. I'm not sure it's going to be opaque enough. I might go with the cad yellow hue and then maybe wash some of this yellow on it. And that orange is a nice orange, so I might use these three colors and see how they do together, and then maybe add a little bit of the bright yellow. We shall see. I'm going to put all four of these colors out on my palette, so I'm going to get them shook up and the plastic off of them. Okay, so I'm just going to take these colors and paint them randomly in these wings and try and get them to be nice and cohesive looking in here. Of course, we're going to have black out here on the edges, so we want to keep most of these colors towards the center of the wings where we will be seeing it. So don't worry too much about going all the way out to the edges. Yeah, that bright yellow is just going to be way too transparent, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. So I'll probably keep the darker colors up towards the tip a little bit more and the lighter colors. So let's just try and create a little bit of a mottled effect in here if you can. Alright, let me move out to this one. I start with the darker color, whatever colors you're painting your butterfly. Put some of that medium color in here, and then the yellow. And put a little bit of a mottled look if we can. It's hard to do on fabric, but you know, just do the best that you can. Once we put the black on there, it'll all look pretty darn good. So if you're using just regular acrylic paints, I would go with like a burnt orange and a tangelo orange maybe, and then a cad yellow. Those would be good colors to use. Or Sunny Day if you have it, that's a great yellow color. So I think I'll put the yellow on first. And then go into my medium. And then into my dark. And I couldn't get my lines for my body to come on here, so I'm going to have to really look at my pattern lines and try and freehand it there. I couldn't get them to work out where they needed to work out. Wouldn't transfer onto the fabric. Going back in with a little bit of the yellow lighten up just a little bit. Bring a little bit more of this darker color out here. Okay, so that's pretty much how we're going to do the beginning of the wings. So it's just a messy little mix there. And don't worry too much about how it looks, because once we put all the black on there, it will be, that orange will just be the background kind of, because the black's going to make the orange really, really pop. So I am going to see if I can figure out where the body is here. Let me get my line drawing out. I think I'm going to do it with a gray color. So I'm going to get some black and white out and mix a medium gray color, I think, to start with. So let's see. The wing, I probably need to put a little bit more paint on here because the wing comes down here. Right there. Wipe that off. I'm going to grab some yellow. So I'm going to bring this down farther and put some yellow here. Going to help me where my body's going to go. So I'm going to mix some black and white for a medium gray, and the body is going to be here, and then here, and then it comes off the back. We can see it back here. I'm going to bring that a little bit farther down. Just paint this in with that medium gray value. Mix a little bit more here. Okay, pull my pattern out of the way now. Touch up. And I'm going to just wipe my brush off and go into some black. And I'm going to tap that in along the back part of the body. Wipe my brush off and then just kind of tap blend it into that wet medium gray paint. Wipe my brush off as I pick up some of that because I don't want to fill this whole section in. And then this section, you have to move quickly so your paint doesn't dry, or just wait and do each section individually. Grab a little bit more of that light gray here. And then I'm going to grab just a little bit of white. Put some of that in here, some little highlights. I'll wipe my brush off. I want to blend that just a little. Bit more black right through here. Don't worry about that gap that's in between, because we're going to fill that in with black when we do the details on the butterfly. So I'm going to add just a small amount of water to my paint to just slightly thin it. Now you can use an Identa pen to do this, My orange paint is still kind of wet, so I'll try to stay out of it. I'm going to put a dot out here, a decent sized dot. That's the end of the antenna. And then we want a really thin line to come back to the butterfly. And that finishes off that part of the butterfly. I probably won't do anything. Well, I got to add the legs in there, so let me look at my pattern so I can see what the legs look like here. I might go over those antennae again because they're not quite dark enough. So I have one right there. Here. We'll definitely have to highlight these. And then one right here. And grab some white and we'll highlight these. We can see the legs. Okay. Now we're going to finish out the black detail on the butterfly. I'm going to let that orange dry just a minute or two. So one other color that a monarch butterfly has on it that I forgot is some white. So we're just going to put some white out along the outer edges. Just tap some in. We may end up seeing it, we may not. We may cover it with black, it may stay white. But we just want to have some in here. I don't want you to be thoughtful about this, I just want you to tap some white in. My orange was partially dry, it's not completely dry, so my white is staying white. It's not blending down into the orange and the yellows. So that's going to be very helpful. So we want to have those dots on there. Just adding a little bit more, create some, make sure we got some bright white ones on here. Okay, I'm going to let all of this dry, and so we can start putting our black on and finish up this design. Alright, we're going to start painting our, finish up our monarch, and then we're going to do a little stenciling on here, I think, and be done with this project. So I am going to first do a little outline of how I want my wings to look. So we're going to use black paint, and their wings have unique patterns on them. So I'm going to see if I can do this back wing and get it. See, that's the front of the wing. So we want to start here and kind of create a piece like that, and then one that comes off like this. It looks this way because the wing is bent, folded, I guess I should say. And then this one we won't see much of it on this edge over here. And then they have some, I want to say smaller things out here. But you can certainly paint your monarch butterfly any way you want. And then there's circles. And everything else will be black. We'll need some big one in here. And so I'm just going to create how I think it will look the best. It may not be specifically a monarch butterfly wing, but I think when we're done it will resemble it as best we can get it. We're going to outline the wing so we know where we're going, and that should be more flat, not so poofy, I don't think. I think my fabric was a little folded when I drew that on. And we'll bring it around like that. Okay, so then everything inside here, I'm going to grab a little bit bigger brush. I just wanted that smaller one for outlining. Everything else will be painted in with black. And like I said, you can do a pattern and make your design on your wings any way that you want. You're really not going to go too awful wrong here on a monarch butterfly, just as long as you've got those colors in there. And so this is what will take the longest, is painting around everything that you drew in there. So don't make them so small that you end up filling them in with black paint. So we'll all be done the exact same way around everything that you put in here. Now you can use the pattern and just create it off of the pattern, or just create your own design. Like I said, you're not going to go wrong. Most butterfly wings are very similar, so just use your creativity and go with it. So I'm going to paint this one wing in here for you, and then I'll go off camera and finish the other three, because it'll take a little bit of time to paint all 4 of these wings in. And we'll probably come in and on the bigger areas do a little bit of shading on them. When you draw your circles, draw them kind of big. I drew these a little small. I could have drew them a little bit bigger so that my opening for them would be bigger and I could see more of that color back in there. I feel like these need to be touching here. Widen these lines a little bit, because this will stay the color that it is. And I'm only going to go to here, because that wing, when I outline it, will take care of covering up anything on this wing. So I don't want to put black right there, because it will be too much. The same when you get over here. Of course you won't, because you'll have your shapes there, but maybe I'll just go ahead and do that wing. So I definitely could have put a lot more circles on my wing here. So you want to keep that in mind. Remember, the part that doesn't have lines or circles is the part that's going to become black. Okay, so there's the first wing, and I know it looks kind of weird, but when we get that one done, it will look much better. You'll let it dry because there'll probably be spaces that you'll have to go back and touch up. Okay, so this one here, let me get my other brush, and I will draw some lines on this other back one. So, let's see. I'm going to put a big one here, and a big one here, one here, and I'm going to put some out here. I don't know at all if this is right or wrong. I'm just going for it. You can pull up a monarch butterfly picture online and look at all of its details and go from there. Okay, oops. So that one I put a lot more circles on, and I should have put a lot more circles on that one. But what's done is done, and then you're just going to go around everything with your black. Ooh, a little bit of water in my brush there. And just easy peasy right there. Don't get too much, because we've still got to outline that one up there. Definitely have to come back and do a second coat on here. I'm going to outline this wing real quick. I think I'm going to bring that wing over a little bit. And then just fill in around all of your lines. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. I'll go off camera and finish all this black, and then we'll come back and finish up. Okay, I've got all two coats of black on all of my wings, so now I'm just adding some white dots throughout the rest. And that's going to finish up the wings. I just dip into my white and just put varying white dots to fill in kind of the black areas. I mean, not fill it in, but their wings have these dots in them, a lot of white dots. So just do that on all 4 wings. So I'm going to go finish up the other 2, and we'll be back. So their bodies are really dark. I went and saw a picture of a monarch. So I am going to just lightly wash over the body with some black, and then their bodies also have all these white dots on them. I did not know that, so I'm going to take my white paint and add some tiny little dots all over the body. Ideally, you want to wait for the black wash that you put on there to dry, and I'll come back and put a second coat on those after they're dry. So I got my white dots on and let them dry, and then I did just a light float of black right next to these wings to separate them, and a little bit on the body after the white drops dried. So now we're going to get ready to do our stenciling. Completely forgot to turn the camera on when I stenciled, but I just stenciled it with black paint. Just use a makeup sponge and tap it on 2 or 3 light layers, and don't mush it or push it or swirl it or anything, and just let it get into the fabric. This is one of my stencils, my gather stencil, and I think that's about it. I think this turned out fabulous. I love it. I love it. I love it. Alright everybody, thanks so much for painting with me, for watching my videos, for following me on Facebook. I just appreciate every single one of you. Give me a thumbs up and like and share my videos. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye everybody.